Not all at once. Tommy.
The Lady in Black.
John Cash.
Well, I was really interested in your style of your poetry. I really liked, the way it kind of achieved a narrative, almost like epic quality with all the different things mixed in. And, where did you come up with that idea? I mean, who influenced it?
Well, thank you very much.
You might want to pass the microphone around too.
Yeah, we can see you way back there.
Okay, can you see me now? Okay, hi. Let's see. I mentioned when I was reading, I started writing it when I was 17. So I was at a fine arts boarding school studying creative writing, and I was in a class called hybrid genres. So we were reading kind of atypical poetry. I read this book called Deep Step Come Shining by C.D. Wright. That's a book-length poem, and that was my inspiration. And I kind of didn't intend to write a book-length or chapbook-length poem. It just got bigger and bigger. I don't know if that answers your question at all. But kind of just, I was influenced by what I was reading in that course.
Well, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Not that the others weren't, but it really struck a chord with me.
Joe, who are some of your influences?
My influences? Holy smokes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff. Always Life. My first book was about being in love and figuring out all the messy stuff in it. And then the second one was, living in a trailer park. Everyone I know's body's falling apart. So that, I love a lot of the classics. I love, Ginsberg, I love Whitman, I love Emily Dickinson. And I don't know, music, I feel like if I'm not listening to music while I write, I'm doing it wrong. So.
Do you have any performance style influences?
Oh.
The way that you read?
Maybe, I don't know, I used to run a reading series, and I had the opportunity that Nick has of just being able to see people read all the time. And I knew I didn't like when performers didn't own their work in a way, or try to backpedal from what they were saying. So, in DC there was a lot of slam poetry too. So I feel like I've had the opportunity to take and learn from a lot of different styles. Yeah. So yeah. And being a terrible musician was part of it too.
Joe, is your wife okay?
My wife is okay.
Okay.
She's okay. Things are bad for a while, but she's okay.
How do you bridge the gap between your day job and your art for all three of you? I know that being a student is a tough job too, so if you're really good at it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely do still have a day job. I do till an 8 to 4:30 at a university in Kenosha. So for me, it just takes sometimes the discipline of saying I'm going to carve out this time to write, and I would feel probably more creative with a little less structure if I was just able to frolic a little bit more in fields and stay up till 2 in the morning writing. That's what feels natural to me, but I don't really have that luxury with my day job. So it just looks like weekends and evenings, and just making the time for what I love to do, which is write and play. So.
Okay, well, I'm a student, so summers are really good for me. For writing, I had a small day job. I was a camp counselor for 5- and 6-year-olds in the morning, and then I had a lot of time to write. And after coming from the Institute this summer, I just felt like I could pour out poetry for days and days. At school, it's a little harder when I'm channeling my energy on academic pursuits, I guess. And I'm also a folk musician, and so I was trying to balance the two, and ended up kind of unfortunately focusing more on music. I mean, it was nice because I grew in a different way, but I feel like I'm finally getting back into poetry this summer, so it's kind of a balancing act, I guess.
Boston's a great town to be a musician.
Boston's phenomenal.
So I've never had money. I've always had to work a lot. So, you know, I think just the faith that art gets made step by step. I remember I was working in a factory that made books, and I was on a line where I could stack boxes of books, and I was like, well, I have 5 seconds between every box. And I had a book in my back pocket, and I'd open it, and I'd put the book back, and so just trying to squeeze out as much as I could like that, like reading and writing and talking to people. But I've been really grateful to have great teachers, and one thing one of them told me was, look, you can't say you're a writer if you're not writing. You're only a writer when you're writing. So, you know, to have that writing, I better find some time to do it, yeah. You know, we should all be, yeah, I don't know. I just wish we all had more time to write.
Yeah, too.
We're so broke.
Other questions? I have a question that I think much of it is maybe, I don't know, part of it is from knowing your guys' work, but part of it is probably from knowing you guys personally, each at least a little bit, which is just like, so Joe writes, you know, a book called The Devotional Poems. Naomi is writing all these songs with all sorts of spiritual metaphors and references and experiences in them. And Malin has a lot of the same. So just like, if each of you could say a few words about, I guess, the role that spirituality plays in your art making and the relationships that they have. You got the mic, so I guess that lands on you.
Well, my parents raised me in a Presbyterian church, so I always grew up being spiritual, and I found I was writing more reverent spiritual stuff in earlier teen years, and then somehow I started trying to converge darkness and spirituality, and that's where a lot of the weirdness of my chapbook comes from. So trying to grapple, I think, with purity and the sense of purity in like biblical texts, or spiritual music, I guess, and then the inherent, like, the urge for me to write is very gritty and all revealing, so kind of balancing those out, or channeling one through the other.
I don't know. I feel like I did grow up Catholic, super Catholic, and yeah, and for a while it was like, oh man, I'm writing bad heavy metal stuff, and I didn't read a lot of the more sort of crazy, you know, genitals exploding Jesus poems, but from the book. But I think I talked to a professor
You just
about.
got a bunch of people to buy your book. Animals exploding Jesus poems.
But, you know, I was talking to a professor in the university, and she was like, why can't we talk about religion in a graduate classroom? You know, like that we live in a totally religious society, particularly on the right, and then the left is like, no God, secularism. You know, like, and it's like, you idiots need to understand each other somehow, right? So that's something I've been trying to understand, like, how do you make the boundaries between those two poles and beliefs a little more porous? You know, because rigid ideology is the reason, you know, people are cutting each other's heads off and putting other people in jail for their entire lives. It's, you know,
Notice he dropped the mic.
so, you know, I'm not religious anymore. I'm not religious anymore in a traditional sense, but I feel like secular people still need a way to engage with these ideas. Yeah. So that's it.
Well, for me, it's just kind of like what I included in the mission statement, which is just an authentic expression of something that is my story. For me, all my songs are stories. you know, and they are just pulled from my experiences in life, and it's how I process in a lot of ways. It's how I get through things and understand myself and the world that I'm in. And it's a great outlet for that. Also, it helps me connect with other people in sharing my story. I just feel like that's something that art is powerful for. It's that kind of vulnerable place of like, well, this is where I've been, and this is this little tidbit, this little expression. So anyways, spirituality fits in that for me because it's just very much what my life looks like in my life search and my deep wrestle with things. It just kind of comes out naturally because I can't cover it up. It would just, I don't know how I would write not spiritually because I feel like I'm a spiritual person, so I would have to be something else.
Any last one? Zoe, you got one more?
Sort of superficial, but I know the covers of all your books and CDs. How did you choose the artwork? And is that a tough choice? I mean, if you really want to sort of capture the essence of what you do on a cover, that's got to be a tough thing to pull off. Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with the cover? I love the Dusty Springfield image, by the way.
Rita Skeeter, maybe?
Huh?
I think it's Rita Skeeter.
Is that? Oh, that's Skeeter Davis. I'm sorry.
Skeeter Davis, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're
That's a
right.
Harry Potter
Oh.
character? Wow.
Yeah, Harry
I forgot
Potter.
Harry Potter existed. That was subconscious work. Okay.
So that comes from your section 12, the Skeeter Davis car crash reference.
Yeah.
The End of the World, that's a brilliant song. I'm glad you referenced that song. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Comments on cover art and things like that?
Can I just go down the line?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have the two CDs. One of them is the cover is like a Polaroid picture of me, and I'm sitting on a gravel road with a lake, and I have my guitar, and it was just a very like meandering, wandering season for me. Without a whole lot of direction, and it was really, really wonderful. I had just met a friend, literally, at a halfway point. Like, we knew each other from living in the mountains, and we were like, where are you in the States right now? Where am I? And we just like found a halfway point and met there, and that picture was taken. And the CD is called 4 Miles to Story City, and the whole premise of that is, we're almost there, but we're not there yet. We don't know where we're going, but we're going there. So that's that one. And then the second one is a shovel on the ground. It's called Primary Colors, and it is about the sequence and the phases of different things and seeing things in incomplete stages to make them whole. So if you open up the cover, there's a shovel on the ground, and then there's graphing paper, and then there's logs being cut, and then the back is the beginning of a log cabin being built that I saw when I was on my way up north one time, and it's all very metaphorical, and I could get into very long-winded details, which I won't, but anyways, I took that picture because it was just something that I saw in my mind's eye, and wanted it to be the cover.
Okay, Skeeter Davis. Well, I referenced briefly my grandfather passing in my book, and he and my grandmother watched Lawrence Welk a lot. That's what it's called? Okay. And I always thought it was cheesy, and I hated it, but there was something lovable about it. And so I found the Skeeter Davis song, and the whole, my poem is a love poem. It's a very grim love poem, I suppose, but I thought I would make a nod to one of the cheesiest love songs ever. And then I found a video for performing that. It was even cheesier, so I just took a screenshot from YouTube and did some stuff.
Let's say there is no copyright attribution there, so that's the internet era.
Yeah. And then I actually, I have cassettes here. I don't think I mentioned that for my music, and the cover is a wooden dollhouse my dad made me when I was younger, and I edited it over a photo of Lake Michigan. I guess there's no non-cliche to say this, non-cliche way. I was grappling with my notion of what home was. So home was Lake Michigan, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, those are all really beautiful cover works and artworks. I don't know, the Catholicism is insane because you can just create more saints, and there are things called narco-saints, you know, which is like, hey, this guy is going to be the saint of badass drug dealers. And I am interested in that kind of contingency and liquidity, and the idea that a colonial religion could be decolonized in a way, and made one's own. And so when it came time to have a cover for this book, I thought of different things, but the first thing I thought of was my friend Alyssa Phoebus Mumtaz, who's crossed a lot of borders in her life and spent a lot of time living in Pakistan. But she converted to being a Sufi, which is another religion, which I think is a little more flexible than others. And this is inspired by both Sufi designs and Pakistani rug designs, and I really wanted that to be part of this book, so that there, you know, along with the Judeo-Christian imagery, there was another thread within it. And so I suggest you see her work, Alyssa Phoebus Mumtaz. It's online. You could imagine that this is 8 feet tall and on cow leather. Is how she does a lot of her prints. Although if you don't like to harm animals, don't look at it. Okay, now I'm digging a hole. All right, so that's it.
Well, with that abrupt ending, thank you guys all again so much.